Hello, Delta gamers! Hello, Delta warriors, Delta gamers, alpha males, super epic sauce gameroos. So, if you've been following me for even just a little bit, you'll probably know that I am a big fan of deltarune. I am a delta maxing delta warrior, if you will. I'm a big fan of deltarune, and I'm a big fan of Undertale, and overall just Toby Fox stuff in general. So as of recording, Toby Fox has announced Deltarune's Chapter 3 and 4 will come out in 2025, 100%, which is exciting. It is very exciting, and I'm very normal about this information. I actually do hope to make a voice-over video animation, something or other, about my experience with Undertale and why it's so important to me. If you want to read about that, I also have it on my website for my game. Plug. But for now, I'm just gonna talk about Deltarune, my thoughts, hopes, and dreams, my opinions on Deltarune, some of my theories, some of my predictions, some of my headcanons, just the whole 9 yards. I think it would be cool to make separate videos on some of these different topics, going more in detail. So if that sounds like something that would interest you, please let me know. But think of this video as a bit of a sampler plate, if you will, of all of my personal Deltarune thoughts. And, you know, if you're hankering for some more Deltarune content, just come along with me. Come along now. Hold my hand as we go down this beautiful road of Deltarune. I'm gonna put this video into different sections, and I'll have timestamps for each section, so if you're like, this is boring, move on, you can just go to whichever section interests you the most. I actually did get a recommendation to tell my thoughts about Chapter 3, my predictions, but I decided to be crazy instead and talk about my experiences with Chapters 1 and 2, Deltarune as a whole, and then talk about my predictions for Chapters 3 through 5, theories regarding the whole game, and analysis on some of the different characters and themes, as well as some crackpot theories that I've thrown in, and then also some headcanons and silly stuff that I'll leave towards the end, just some weird things that I felt I couldn't really fit in anywhere else. So yeah, let's Deltarune it up, gamers. I actually can't really remember when I played Chapter 1 first, because the thing about Deltarune is I really viscerally remember playing Undertale, Toby Fox's first game, as we're probably all aware. I really viscerally remember playing Chapter 2, but I don't really remember when in this timeline I played Chapter 1. So if you don't know, I'm a pretty new Undertale fan, all things considered. My TLDR, my brother bought me Undertale in 2020, and it became my whole personality and changed my life in a lot of cool ways. Shortly after, I played Deltarune, and I'm a big Deltarune head. But I don't exactly remember when I first played Chapter 1, but I have good memories with Chapter 1. And I don't know how many times I replayed it before Chapter 2. I just remember being really into it, but I think Chapter 2 is where I really started enjoying Deltarune. I don't have a lot of thoughts on Chapter 1 in particular. I think it's really creative, I think it's really fun, I like the characters, I think the Goner Maker intro is really awesome, I think Rules is hot. I really like stool form. That's really stupid, but it's like, if you ever grew up with siblings, you've done stool form before. It's like an integral part of having a sibling, is doing stool form. Just such a beautiful addition. I like Starwalker. I think he's cool. I think we need more merch of Starwalker. I almost want to order the Newbert beanie, just because it comes with a Starwalker sticker, and I like him a lot. I like the checkerboard guy. What is his name? C-Round. So with Chapter 2, I actually very deeply remember when Chapter 2 was first released because of the fan gamer stream that they did to announce it. I was working at a cafe, and it's one of those cafes where it was inside of another store, and we were not super busy, so a lot of the times I just listened to headphones and was able to listen to whatever just while I was cleaning or doing whatever task I happened to be doing. And I remember very vividly, I was either listening to the live stream that Fangamer was doing, or I knew that it was happening, and I remember contacting one of my good friends at the time, and they were like live reacting to everything that was happening in the live stream. It was really fun. And then our minds were just blown at the announcement. I was seriously so excited, and it was such a fun thing to have kind of sprung on me, like as a newer fan, especially because I had just gotten into these games and there's already a new part coming out. Just very, very exciting. I actually, the day it came out, I played the whole thing straight through because I was really nervous about spoilers online and like getting spoiled on like Instagram. Like I was really on Instagram in like fandom spaces, and so I didn't want to get spoiled or anything, so I played the whole thing. It was like 5 straight hours of deltarune content, and like I had such an awful headache at the end of it, and I was like low-key kind of sick of the deltarune everything. I was like, oh my god, I'm so tired. Actually, one of my biggest memories of chapters 1 and 2 was when I really enjoyed chapter 2, right? And I thought that my friend would really enjoy too. We have like similar tastes in games, and I really wanted to show her Spamton specifically and like Queen. And so I wanted her to get through chapter 1 as quick as possible, so we were playing it together, and I just kept like really pushing for her to continue, and it felt like that episode of SpongeBob with like the snail race. It was really awful. I don't think she'll ever play it again because I was just like, you gotta keep going, you gotta see what's next. And she was like, okay. I think we both had like headaches after that day too, because I was just like, you gotta keep playing. We're still friends, I promise. I'm a good friend. I'm a good friend, I promise. She fucking hates Ralse too, by the way. Saw one look at that thing and she was like, okay, that's enough of that guy. That's enough of him. She also doesn't like Basil from Amori, even though Amori's like her favorite game. So that gives you a good look into her twisted and fucked up mind. She might be watching this. Hey. I also remember having this very immediate thought that the song Now's Your Chance To had a very like Ina-like vibe, and I planned a whole animation where it would be Ina singing to Now's Your Chance To, and 3 years later it still has not left the work in progress chambers. I have like a rough animation in my Toon Boom files and it has some line art done to it, but yeah, I don't think that thing is ever getting done. Sorry. But I hope Fangamer does another stream, like just with the 3 dads and Toby streaming chapter 2, because Toby Fox's commentary as well as the 3 dads commentary was really entertaining. They don't even need to like release anything with it. I think the stream was really fun, and I would love to see more of like that kind of vibe with chapter 2, and maybe even the chapters coming after as well. I'm already such a big fan of Deltarune chapter 1 and 2. They're distinctly different from each other in terms of like color palette, even atmosphere to an extent, I believe, but they connect so well together, especially with the themes that they present and building off of those themes, and even to an extent building off of Undertale. I really love how more and more kind of gets like revealed from each chapter, and it builds off of each other. Chapter 1, for example, we get this reveal of Ralse first taking off his hood and then taking off his hat, and then chapter 2 we have him completely hatless, but also taking off his glasses, kind of revealing these layers of him and maybe even his character through the physical peeling of layers in his character design, which is really smart, I believe. But even outside of Ralse, we learn a lot more about other characters as well, peeling back their layers in a sense, and also just seeing more of them. Noelle and Burley are these very kind of sidelined characters that are predominantly in the light world in chapter 1, but they become extremely important in chapter 2, and we learn a lot more about them and their experiences and their pasts and their character, and I only hope that we'll get more from characters that we know. I really enjoyed Deltarune as a whole, and I love chapter 1 and chapter 2, but if I were to pick a favorite, I would say chapter 2 improves on chapter 1 in basically every way, which is all you can really hope for a game to, improve on itself. But I think the ways that it improves on itself aren't ways that I think the developers need to worry about, beating or anything like that. Now is the time for theorizing and my chapter 3, 4, and 5 predictions. Yay! Chapter 3, I believe obviously is going to be a TV world. I mean, we've gotten a lot of confirmation. I believe chapter 2 really helps us like springboard off of the ending to theorize and predict what's going to happen in chapter 3. I mean, we see the TV has a very significant importance. The door is left open. We see the dark world created in the Dreamer household. We see Toriel there. We see Susie there. We have a lot to work off of. And from what we've seen so far in some of the newsletters and the updates, I mean, we can see there's like the green room, we have Weather Channel characters, we have some sort of like mafia crime thing going on. I really like these shadow guys. They remind me a lot of Jigen from Lupin, that kind of thing. So all of those are confirmed. I do think it's interesting though, the newsletter, I believe it's the concept art that Gigi shows they did for chapter 3, they show it and they specifically state that it's not like, it's separate from the direction they decided to go, which I think is really interesting because this kind of green room look, this kind of look similar to the green room that we see in the Spamton sweepstakes, I feel like it's very similar to a lot of the predictions that I've seen the last 3 years regarding chapter 3's overall look. So I wonder how they diverted from that. Like, is the green room the only thing that looks like this kind of pastelish greenish color? The only thing that I can think of is that the green room is sort of like a starting point, and then we kind of just like jump through in time. Like if you remember the Timmy Turner Fairly Odd Parents Channel Chaser special, that's like the only thing that I can really think of where it's like they go through all the different channels, but they're like all the aesthetics are really different from each other, which I mean, I remember Toby Fox saying that it was a little bit of a sequence break, if you will, that it was going to be a bit of a weird chapter, a lot different. And chapter 4 is going to be more of a return to form, so to speak. So I wonder if chapter 3 is going to be kind of like a rapid fire of all these different aesthetics and things and weird shows, and there's like a TV remote that helps you fast travel or something. That's kind of my prediction. I do think though that the TV world being in the Dreamer household is significant. Obviously a lot of things are going to be TV themed, but as we've seen in the newsletters, Cheryl makes an appearance. Hey Cheryl, why are you here, girl? And so we'll probably get Toriel and stuff like that, but I do think that there's going to be a big focus on the Dreamer household as well, and the Dreamer family through that, kind of exploring their house as a way to explore their past and maybe even some past turmoil and trauma. As we've seen, the Dreamers have a lot of strife even in Undertale. I mean, I think that Deltarune is very different from Undertale in a lot of ways, but it is connected in ways too. I mean, even the characters have a lot of similarities, lots of carryover in certain themes, either being subverted or not. Overall, I think the TV world will be combined with things related to the Dreamer household, and through this, we'll be able to explore the Dreamers' conflicts that they've had. I don't think that all of their family woes will be necessarily like solved or whatever, but I do think that there will be more of an understanding between Toriel, Chris, and their friends, although Chris doesn't really have full agency and we're still controlling them, so I don't think that they'll be on as much of the same page as maybe Chris would like to be on. Like Toriel will be like, oh yes Chris, I understand this is how you're feeling, and then they'll hug, but Chris will just be like neutral emoji. That's kind of my like interpretation of maybe what could happen. I also think that it would be fun if there's like a particular part of the TV world where it's just like those shitty ads that play late at night. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, they even did like a parody of it in the Spamton sweepstakes, so I feel like that's bound to be there. Also, obligatory Suzilla thing. I'm not too like terribly excited for that, but I think it would make for like a cool battle mechanic, you know. For a secret boss, I really like the idea of like the flowers in the trash. I think it could give us a lot of context and maybe some more information on Asgore and Toriel's failing relationship, as these flowers have been passed from Asgore to Toriel through Chris. So it could give us kind of like a context between those three characters and their relationships towards each other, which I think would be cool. Also, the newsletter for chapter 3 had this area on screen I'm showing, which is very similar to the docs from Yumeniki. And if you've been following me for a while or know me in real life, you know that I am a Yumeniki super fan, if you will. And so this made me jump for joy because it's obviously some sort of homage. I think that there will be a weird route, but I don't think it'll be the same pattern as chapter 2. I feel like a lot of people have been predicting the pattern of chapter 2's weird route where you manipulate blank and kill blank and traumatize blank is like that. I feel like a lot of people like copy paste that pattern and then just like paste it onto each other chapter. I think Deltarune is really fun because we don't usually know what's coming next. I feel like chapter 2 was really different from chapter 1 in a good way. I enjoyed the new characters, the new battle mechanics even, playing with the mechanics that we already had set in stone, and I think it was really fun. So I think it would be kind of a bummer if it was just the same weird route over and over again, but I do think there will be some sort of weird sequence break, creepy pasta shenanigans. I don't think it would be Deltarune if there wasn't like weird shit going on. And again, I mean, I know I keep harping on Yumeniki, but Toby Fox said that Yumeniki is one of his biggest inspirations, and that kind of uneasiness that comes from things being just a little weird, just a little off, really comes through Deltarune, and I think that's fun. I think that's really fun and really cool. I definitely think that there will be characters that fall into this dark world though. I think that is a pattern from chapter 2 that I really enjoy and really think will continue in one way or another. I don't think it's going to be particularly set in stone, you know, this person and this person fall into the dark world, one gets on our side and one is against us. Ooh. I do think Toriel's gonna be a part of it, obviously. She's there. She's there. I didn't think about it though. She's gonna be in her pajamas, so her Dark World outfit is probably gonna be like blue, which is fun. I don't think we usually see that. And again, kind of like a pattern of Dark World is reminiscent of dreaming or dreams, nighttime, nightmares, sleeping. So it makes sense that her pajamas would turn into some sort of outfit, maybe like a fantasy themed outfit. I saw someone, I don't remember who, say that that Chariel could become a chariot, which I think is really cute. It could also become some sort of like steed or like horse. I don't know. I don't know if Chariel will talk, but I think it would be fun if it did. She's definitely seen some things. I think it would also be fun if both Napstablook and Undyne are in the Dark World, because I think it would be fun to see their dynamic, and I don't think it would make sense for just one of them to come in, and I feel like the only reason people maybe say that it's just one of them is because we're used to having two people go into the Dark World, but that's all only happened in chapter 2. Who knows what the rest of the chapters will be like. Overall, those are my predictions and thoughts. As of specific themes or character beats, I'm not quite sure, but I would be pleasantly surprised with anything that Toby Fox and the team throw at us. But yeah. Oh, chapter 4. What an enigma you are. I think a lot of the theorizing, like I said before, from chapter 3 is a lot easier because we have chapter 2 to springboard off of. We don't know how chapter 3 is going to end, so I don't exactly know how chapter 4 is going to begin. And we've barely gotten a lot of sneakity peekities from it. So I'm gonna go off of the few sneak peeks that we've gotten from newsletters and updates and such, as well as my own personal thoughts and in-game clues. I think that chapter 4 is going to be very holiday themed. The most recent newsletter that we've gotten has Noelle with like a flashlight or something with a bunch of Christmas presents in the back. It seems like a screenshot from the chapter itself. Rudy also says that they might be able to visit the church tomorrow, and we know that chapter 4 is going to be in the morning, so it is tomorrow, because chapter 3 takes place at night, and then the morning, so chapter 4 is tomorrow. Okay, we get it. So my guess is that it's gonna be some sort of like Noelle and Rudy focused chapter. Now that I'm saying this, it might actually be cool to have Asgore also involved more heavily in the plot, rather than just seeing him afterwards. Because we know that Rudy and Asgore have some sort of friendship, relationship thing going on. But overall, I think it's gonna be like a very Rudy, Noelle focused chapter, very holidays. Maybe the mayor will be there, but I don't know. I feel like she's kind of being teased as like a later antagonist, maybe. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get a little more information about her, but overall, mostly like Rudy and Noelle, and I think we'll get a lot more about Des as well. I think that if we have Rudy and maybe even Asgore as like a focus, I feel like the adults will maybe bring up Des a little more, like they'll feel like they need to talk about it, like maybe they'll reach some sort of point where they're like, we can't stop ignoring this, we have to like talk about this, you know. So for like the Dark World itself, I'm a big fan of like the church. Obviously they say that they're gonna go visit the church, so I think that would be interesting. I'm also a big fan of like the graveyard. I know that it's not necessarily like an indoor place with double doors to go indoors, but I do think that the graveyard is really interesting, and it has a lot of baggage from the kids growing up, getting lost there. There's like cryptids that might be involved. Overall, the pattern of like places that involve some sort of escapism or adventure or imagination. I think that playing in the woods as a kid is a very like creepy, nostalgic experience, and I think it would match really well with like a Dark World, and it would be very Des related as well, so I think that would be cool. I also really love the Day and Hometown song that we get to see in the update for this chapter. A lot of the chapter update that we see is of Susie and Chris just like exploring hometown in the day, and it's like raining, which is really nice, really atmospheric, and overall just like seeing the hometown in the day is really nice. It's really fun, really pretty. This song reminds me a lot of like older Toby Fox, like Moonsetter, Homestuck kind of vibe, which is really cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan, but I don't have a lot of like super big predictions or anything regarding chapter 4. I just think it'll be very holiday themed, church or graveyard or something. Yeah. And then I'm only doing chapter 5 because it's been brought up in newsletters, and I think it would be fun to talk about, kind of bounce off my ideas. Although I don't have a lot of thoughts about chapter 5. There was a balloon for it on the newsletter, just like a singular balloon swaying in the wind, which made my Yumeniki rotted brain think of the Pink Sea, which leads to Poniko's house, which then leads to the Uboa jump scare, and obviously Uboa has connections with Gaster, so do with that what you will. I think maybe some sort of Flower King themed Dark World. I feel like it would be time. We haven't really explored Flower King and Asgore a whole lot yet. Chapter 3 being in the Dreamer household would be kind of like a teaser to this. In my prediction, we would get to see Toriel and Chris's thoughts regarding Asgore, Asriel, their experiences growing up, the conflict that maybe had occurred. But before this, we have kind of been closed off to Asgore's side of the story. We've seen little snippets here and there, but Asgore also has Toriel has this too, but he has a very deflective kind of coping mechanism regarding hardship. And we see this in Undertale as well, where he kind of wants to pretend that things are okay, but he's clearly not doing well. There's like an eviction notice from the mayor in his shop. He's obviously very lonely. He's obviously trying way too hard to get back together with Toriel, kind of trying to get back in this whole happy family, happy relationship, nuclear family role that he was in before something happened, or even before they just fell out of love. But we have been kind of closed off to this, and it's been kind of a mystery to us. His thoughts, his feelings, his loneliness could all be explored at a Flower King level, and maybe we'll even get to learn why he got kicked off the force, which I think would be really cool. Also, the balloon in the chapter 5 thing makes me think of the Sadie Hawkman's dance, which was referenced before in the very first chapter, which makes sense because there's a lot of like dance-esque imagery going on in the newsletters and promo art, concept art, things like that. There's a lot of that goddamn red solo cup guy, which is cute. And I mean, Susie reaching into a punch bowl with presumably a red solo cup. But in reality, I just love dance settings. I think it's so fun. I went to a lot of like church dances growing up. They were like kind of amazing. I kind of love them. And there's a lot of religious imagery and religion in Deltarune and Hometown, which makes me think of, going to church dances growing up, being awkward, dancing with cute boy or whatever. I don't know, I just think it would be fun to have these characters dress up and go to a dance. I also drew this art from forever ago of this exact experience, so it's something I would love to see. So yeah, now that I think about it, maybe there could be a church level, but they're going to visit the church, and then there's like a church dance or something. But I mean, if they're talking about the Sadie Hawkman's dance, I feel like that's the kind of one that maybe would be important. Chekhov's gun and all that. While I have my personal headcanons and theories, I really enjoy being surprised by Toby Fox and his writings and his games. I feel like I trust what he writes and his writing style and the narrative that he wants to show us and tell us. And so even if my theories don't come true, I think that's really okay, because I think whatever Toby Fox makes will be a good fit for his own universe and his themes. So these are really just like my little predictions and theories, something to maybe hold ya over while we wait for the chapters 3 and 4. Yeah. I do want to bring up just real quick, I have a bit of a bone to pick with the culture around like parasocially sussing out Toby Fox's motives and goals regarding like literally anything he posts. I feel like that culture can be just a little bit toxic. I feel like it puts Toby Fox's social media posting and every move under a bit of a microscope. That's a little unhealthy. Specifically, I don't think it's very productive to try to suss out any sort of Deltarune connection regarding anything that Toby Fox works with outside of his own personal games and Deltarune, any sort of collaborations or anything like that. And I honestly believe that any connections made to Deltarune throughout his other collaborations are simply a product of an artist wanting to explore certain themes a lot. I've noticed throughout my own work, I have a bit of a repetition regarding certain themes, and a lot of artists just like certain things and subconsciously will explore those themes throughout other works that are unrelated to maybe a more popular work. Yeah, I just don't think it's very productive. I feel like it's a little parasocial, and I feel like if I was a big creator and I tried to shit post on Tumblr and everyone was like, it's connected to Deltarune, I would be a little annoyed. But I suppose that's also me being parasocial by trying to kind of figure out how Toby Fox would feel. But I'm just trying to put myself in his shoes. I do remember him saying something along the lines of he can't shitpost as much anymore. Kind of as a joke. But I think we need to tone it down a little bit. Maybe we can just explore what's in the works itself and not try to, detective our way through every collaboration and every project he's ever worked on ever. Because sometimes artists just be making shit, and it's unrelated to anything that they've made before. It might just be Toby Fox likes exploring meta-narrative themes regarding video games, and a music video he works on is not secretly predicting the rest of Deltarune. Maybe his work on that music video is just very similar to the themes he wants to explore with Deltarune because he's an artist and he wants to explore themes that he finds interesting. I don't know. Those are my personal thoughts. It's just a personal pet peeve of mine, honestly, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I feel like it's worth bringing up. Just be mindful, you guys. Toby Fox is a person. He's an artist, and he's not some sort of mysterious mastermind. He's just like a guy. Next, I'm going to talk about my theories for the full game. A lot of my theories kind of coincide with other theories that Deltarune creators and theorists have already made really in-depth, fascinating videos about. So I'm going to link all of the theories that I personally jive with below, but I guess I'll just talk about some of my theories, some of my thoughts on the theories. I am a full believer in the device theory, most concisely told and popularized by the YouTuber Molly Stars. I am a very firm believer that we are being connected to Deltarune via some sort of device run by Gaster, and that Deltarune is also a subversion and deconstruction of creepypasta, Easter egg type things, especially Noelle's route, especially the weird route, breaking the game in that sort of way, narratively, where it was an Easter egg kind of coded in on purpose in order to create kind of a meta commentary of video games as a whole when it comes to Easter eggs and video game fandom and community, to kind of create a narrative around that idea, which I think is really cool. It kind of breaking the game into a story in and of itself, which I think is really smart, really cool, and kind of artificially creating that kind of playground rumor Easter egg kind of dealio. Specifically in Molly Star's video, she talks about how the weird route isn't really advertised anywhere, similarly to how Easter eggs or glitches aren't like plastered around AAA games pages or anything like that. It's like not supposed to be found and usually patched out, so kind of artificially replicating that by just having it like hidden in the game but not really advertised anywhere. Specifically with the weird route, saying that there's only one ending could indicate that, you know, there's only one ending as in there's different routes but the ending is all the same, or it could indicate as well that there was meant to be only one ending, similarly to how AAA games or bigger budget games are not supposed to have Easter eggs, and so they advertise, you know, this is how our game is supposed to be played, you know, just kind of artificially recreating that and then breaking it in order to tell a interesting story. So I think that is just super cool, and I would love to see what else they do with that specific exploration of those themes and video games as a whole, because there's a lot to commentate with video games, especially meta-narratively, and expanding that onto fandom and like forum culture, playground rumor culture regarding communities in video games. There's just a plethora of things to explore there. So I think that is just really cool, and I'm very excited to see where that goes. I'm also a big fan of the angel being the player. Like, we are this eldritch being, almost not haunting the game, but watching over this game, that we are higher up in some way. But also, I really enjoy Noelle being connected to that in some way. There's a really good theory on this that goes into a detail that I will link down below, but basically it's kind of like a holy trinity. So in this holy trinity, Deltarune trinity thing, we are God and Noelle is like Jesus. So we're both the angel in this way, but Noelle is like this angel born in Deltarune who's going to like carry out a similar kind of thing that we are, which is also backed up by the fact that she's very connected to the roots regarding breaking the game, and that she's called Angel a bunch of times. I also really like the multiple night theory, and enjoy the Chris Knight theory in general. I think it's a really cool way to have us as the player kind of against Chris, this protagonist, and it's kind of a way to deconstruct the whole protagonism and self-insert kind of dealio. I love it. I think it's really cool. I'm also a big fan of Chris Knight in the context that they know, in a sense, what happened to Des, which would be connected to the bunker, which they obviously have past experience with, and that maybe they're opening Dark Worlds to find more information out about Des. That's also something that I think would be interesting. Going along with the idea that Chris is opening up Dark Worlds to find Des, I also believe that it would be cool if Chris summoned the player using occult stuff to help find Des in some way. Like, there was this disaster growing up, then they tried to summon some sort of strange demon, being, god, something, in order to help them in kind of breaking this reality in order to find Des. Another theory that I have is Asgore had something to do with Des's disappearance. I think that this would not only make sense narratively, but if we are to believe that the parallels between Deltarune and Undertale are significant, in Undertale, Asgore obviously killed a bunch of children, thinking that he was doing the right thing, or maybe even just trying to convince himself that he was doing the right thing. I don't think that Asgore killed Des or anything that extreme, but I do think that his responsibility on the Force was misused in some way, and he caused a tragedy, whether on purpose or not, or he knew that there was some sort of risk and he went through with it anyway, causing a disappearance and causing him to lose his job. I also believe that Ralsei got the prophecy from Gaster and is following Gaster's plans, and that he's a bit misguided and is holding back on information on purpose from us. Not because he's malicious or anything, but more because he doesn't want to scare off his new friends, and he's been so lonely for so long that doesn't want them to think any lower of him. So he'll only really give information that's less than stellar or less than happy if it's life or death kind of dealio. One of my biggest theories or opinions regarding Deltarune is that I believe that Chris is the Deltarune equivalent of Chara. A lot of the Deltarune characters are equivalents or parallels in some way to the Undertale characters. I believe that Chris is this version's Chara. Obviously, they have that surface level similar look to them. They like chocolate and knives. They're the adopted sibling of Azrael, and I believe that Chris is kind of like a flip-flopped version of Chara, where now we're playing as them and we are possessing them in this way. Instead of hearing about it from the past, we are in sort of that present, and the big tragedy that happened in Undertale hasn't happened yet, or it's going to happen differently. I don't know who Frisk's alternate or parallel character is. I honestly believe that Frisk is just somewhere else, because they're originally from the surface in Undertale, and so in Deltarune, I believe that narratively, since we are playing as this Chara equivalent, that, Frisk wasn't in the picture when Chara was alive, so now that in this kind of timeline situation, Chris and Azrael are alive and living with Toriel in this kind of more suburban, modernized situation, Frisk isn't in the picture because there's no need for them to narratively be confused with Chara. I also think that it's pretty interesting that the important person shirt is both on Deltarune and Undertale, which could mean a lot of things, a lot of different things, okay? Maybe it's Azrael's shirt in both games, but I think it's interesting that the Chris shirt and the Chara shirt are the same shirt. It's just my observation. I really enjoy any sort of theory that has the player or game elements be a metaphor rather than wowee, I sure am living in a video game. For example, instead of the player being literally the player in the context of Deltarune, I like them being some sort of eldritch being or spirit possessing Chris, rather than I am the player and I am playing Chris, the main character. Or secret bosses went crazy, not because they found out they were living in a video game, but because they simply realized that their lives are predetermined, not because they are written in a code, but that there is some sort of predetermined thing going on, and that it's able to be adjusted or played with by Gaster. I also believe that Des is lost in the code, but the code in the Deltarune world is the depths, and it's underwater. I don't know how to explain. In my notes, I literally wrote, I imagine this is underwater, kinda, which doesn't make any sense to read out loud, but yeah, I believe it's some sort of you go far enough down underwater that you go through some sort of portal, and it's this dark, weird area, maybe even a dark world if you want to call it that. Okay, I wrote down a bunch of crackpot theories that I found in my notes app that I think I was listening to Molly Stars or something and was what if? And so I'm just gonna read those. This isn't even a theory, it's just like an analysis. Just like Gaster, the player carries out multiple experiments in the roots and is dedicated to seeing everything there is to see. So the player is almost like a scientist carrying out these experiments, even if they're quote-unquote unethical, like forcing Noelle to kill one of her friends. We are kind of like a mad scientist in this crazy game of Deltarune. Are we the knight? By continuing to play the game, we are opening more dark worlds in a way. Maybe it's like the knight is this title that's given to whoever opens this dark world by playing the game. Ugh. I don't really think that one's true at all. I just thought it would be fun to put in here. Maybe Deltarune is sort of like an AU of sorts. I mean, obviously, I think Toby Fox has said that it was some sort of alternate universe kind of dealio, but maybe it's some sort of alternate universe and it was either created or discovered by Gaster, either based off of his home world that he misses and was broken off from, or he was drawn to it because of its similarity to his home world. This last theory on my list just says, Azrael is dead, lol. I have a sort of soft spot for Jar's theory. I also think it could be interesting. I also think it's interesting to notice that Azrael would have white horns, and then the red horns from Chris's headband, if they were combined, they would create pink-horned creature like Rose. I'm not 100% behind this theory at all, which is why it's in this crackpot section. But I do think it's an interesting thought that could mean something at all. I could also just connect to the fact that boss monsters usually have white horns, and the red horns from Chris's headband is like their kind of connection to their monster heritage, I suppose. Some sort of connection to their connection with boss monsters and their boss monster family, and then that combined could create a pink horned creature, Rose, who is neither boss monster nor human. Some sort of weird amalgamation kind of dealio. Not like an amalgamate from Undertale, but you know, going off kind of a theory that people have proposed of Rose being like a manifestation of Chris's desire to be like their family or fit in a certain way. Regarding Chris Knight theory, I also think that the ending of chapter 1 could be them turning around, pulling out their knife, ready to open another dark fountain. Otherwise, like, why why did they do that? I mean, there's the pie, of course, eating the pie, but I think that there's something to be said about something that's supposedly a red herring, only to be actually significant moving on. You know, they turn around ready to mischievously eat some pie, but like, I don't know, maybe they ate some pie and then they fucked on over to the school to open a dark fountain, you know? I think it's pretty cool that the only difference in the save slots is connected to Azrael. The only difference between each save slot, but it is a difference that still exists, is that Azrael's bedside drawer has a different description depending on which save slot you're in, which is so weird, but also shows that he is very significant despite being brought up only a few times, almost as though he like haunts the narrative, similar to how he does in Undertale. Something I want to talk about in this video, and something that maybe I'll even make a future video about, is the significance of Noelle using her childhood fear. In the weird root, Noelle utilizes this past childhood fear of ice against others as some sort of misled attempt to overcome it and become stronger. Just the psychology of her using like the one thing that she's consistently shown fear of against others is very interesting. We see this fear of ice in Icy, the cryptid, Fridge, or the freezer. We see it in connection to the mayor keeping things very cold all of the time. We even see this fear of ice connected to December, the month of December itself being a very cold month, and connection to her sister, December or Des, and she utilizes and weaponizes this childhood fear of ice in the weird root by freezing enemies and becoming stronger. I think that is very interesting. I really like Spamton's arc overall. I feel like it's painfully accurate to some of the most desperate feelings that I've had personally, of self-worth tied to making it big. regarding my art, other things. I think that he's a very relatable character in that way, but also very sad. And it's a very well-written cautionary tale to not get swept up in that sort of thing. So I think that's just a very good arc. Very, very cool, very sad, very good writing there. I think that Deltarune's acid tunnel of love scene subverts the player's desire to do the quote-unquote right thing. Hugging Ralsei seems like the best option because most players like Ralsei. They see hugging someone as a sign of affection, of kindness, of love. But picking up on how much Chris doesn't like Ralsei very much, and then forcing Chris to hug him, it's really unsettling once you put it all together. And in that context, especially after that, then Ralsei will just start hugging Chris unprompted, which is, you know, hugs can be good and can be kind, but it's also important to recognize a person's boundaries regarding hugs. You know, touching someone without their consent is never good, even if it's something like a hug. I don't know if this is a headcanon or an analysis or a theory, but I think that not enough people talk about how much Chris likes Susie. I don't know if it's like a romantic attraction or just a friendship, but there's a lot of things in Deltarune itself that show that Chris really likes Susie, and they have a lot of insecurity regarding being a human and not a monster, and that they will never measure up. They especially have like an inferiority complex regarding their brother, who is a monster, their whole family being a monster, and I think it would be interesting to explore this insecurity regarding Susie. Like, Susie would never reciprocate this sort of attraction because Chris isn't a monster. I don't know if I necessarily like ship krusie. I think I like them more as friends, but it's an interesting dynamic, and Chris's possible feelings of neglect bubbling to the surface, seeing Susie and Noelle, two monsters, getting closer romantically, and them continuing to feel left out in a world full of monsters. It's very interesting, and I think that there's a lot of drama that could be there that could be explored. But I do also not mind if it just happens in the background and it's more of like a subtext that grows stronger and stronger, but I think that would be interesting. I think that it would show a lot more of Chris's personality, their own thoughts and feelings and insecurities. Now we're on to headcanons and silly stuff and everything else. I think that Birdly and Chris are cool and kind of cute. I like their dynamic. I think it would be fun to see them hang out more. Birdly is like so obsessed with having this weird rivalry with Chris. Like, they want to be Sonic and Shadow or something. Like, and Chris just does not give a fuck. But I think it would be cool for them to grow into friends and maybe even something more. I think it would be cute. I think it would be cool if Chris had a ponytail, specifically in the Dark World. I think it would differentiate their silhouette. I think it would be fun. I think it would be cool. That's it. I just think that having a little more of their hair out of the way would make battles very cool and much easier. I think that the Deltarune symbol is worn as jewelry a lot in the Deltarune universe, similar to how people wear the cross in our world, a religious symbol that can either be worn by religious people or maybe even part of like a goth style. I remember drawing a lot of Deltarune characters in different styles and fashion and stuff, and I kept wanting to add like crosses for goth looks, and then I was like, oh, the cross doesn't really, I mean, yeah, there's Christmas, but whatever religion is going on with this Deltarune symbol dealio, whatever religion is going on with this angel is not Christmas, or is not Christianity, so I don't think they would wear a lot of crosses, unless maybe it's like Noelle's family. But even then, like, yeah, it's Christmas, but they don't really seem to be talking about like Jesus. Maybe it's just like Santa Christmas, like the secular Christmas that's kind of come up in the recent years, unrelated to religion. Anyway, I started adding like this Deltarune heart locket and stuff, and I think that that would be more of like what goth fashion would look like in the Deltarune universe. I think it would be funny if the mystery man was not Gaster. I know it would be kind of mean, but I think it would be funny. Like, it's just some guy. Maybe the mystery man is the man behind the tree with the eggs. Maybe just a piece of Gaster. I don't know. I mean, I definitely think it would be cool, and I think there's been like hints that it might be Gaster, but overall I think it would be kind of funny if it was just like not him. That's the wrong guy. This is a bit of a tangent and maybe more of a personal connection than anything else, but I don't think Toriel is some sort of insanely religious, hyper-conservative mom. When Alvin talks about Azriel confessing correcting sins that don't exist. It reminded me a lot of my own childhood growing up religious, being a perfectionist and talking to my parents and leaders about the guilt I felt over the most mundane things. Even my leaders and parents, the authorities, thought I was being overkill, and so Azrael reminds me a lot of that experience. Like a kid just taking religion far too seriously and feeling really guilty and awful about a lot of different things that just do not matter. And even the most religious leaders and authorities are like, chill, bro. Like, it's gonna be okay. I don't know. It's just my experience, really, but I that's how I took it, because I don't think Toriel is some sort of like homophobic, disastrous mother. I think she's very passive-aggressive in her own way, but I don't think that she's particularly bigoted in any sort of way or pushes that feeling of guilt onto her children. I mean, Chris turned out pretty neutral, I suppose. They only go to church for the sick fruit juice, so I think unless Toriel backed off in like the 2 years that Azrael is older, but not that much older, unless she just decided to completely change her parenting style, which I mean does happen with older and younger siblings, but I feel like it's more of a show of Azrael's character rather than Toriel's character, if that makes sense. Overall, I think that Chris is very relatable as a character, and I never really noticed it until I started replaying the game on my Switch and just started realizing all of the things that I really relate to regarding Chris. And I think especially since I started coming to terms more with like my non-binary identity, Chris is just like such an icon. I really like chocolate. Knives are cool, I guess. Maybe not that fair. I also really love my older brother, who I do miss a lot because we don't live as close as we did, when we grew up in the same house. I've talked about this before, but my username Wheelie Scoot actually comes from an inside joke with my brother, and he's also the one that, bought me Undertale. So just overall, Chris is a very relatable character, and look forward to seeing more of them as the years go on, as the chapters release. Something Toby Fox said in an interview one time was that he actually really likes when people interpret simplified pixel designs into like full-fledged character designs. So I have a lot of interpretations of these designs. I must have like gaslit myself into thinking that Chris's shirt was not this neon, because when the shirt came out on the Fangamer website, I was like, oh my god, it's so bright. I felt like my eyes were like burning because it's just so bright. I always interpreted them as being more of like a jewel-toned enjoyer. I have a similar green turtleneck that I wear a lot, and so I guess I just forgot how bright their shirt was. I think my favorite character to interpret designs of is Noelle. I like to think that she wears a lot of different Christmas sweaters, seeing as Toby Fox on his concept art said that she has like 100 different Christmas sweaters or whatever, and they all have slightly different patterns and stuff. I like to think that she wears them over like a button-up shirt or something, although the shirt that she has on, I know it's supposed to be like a checker pattern or something, but the way that the boxes are, or the squares on her shirt are spaced out reminds me a lot of Maruski from Yumeniki, which I think is pretty cool. I also think Ponytail Susie is pretty cool. She used to have a ponytail and then they got rid of it, but I think it would be cool if she had a ponytail. I like whenever anyone draws Spanton with this like creepy unhinged jaw. I think that like the creepier that he looks, the better, because he's supposed to be very unnerving and almost like a broken doll. I think that's cool. Okay, I think I'm done recording. But yeah, overall, I love Deltarune, I love Undertale, I love Toby Fox stuff, and I really look forward to seeing what else is made. This is Scoot, your friendly neighborhood scooteroo. Hello! This is the end of the video. I know I said that my next video was going to be about a certain indie game, but that certain indie game was actually not Deltarune at all, and I don't know when that video is going to come out. It's taken longer, and I feel like I just keep getting fixated on different topics, and then I get so excited about those topics that I make the video really fast and then I put it out. So yeah. Anyway, I know this was a little different. It was definitely a lot less editing and such as my Gravity Falls video. And obviously Deltarune is a very different topic from Gravity Falls, but this channel, I want to talk about things that I love. And I love Gravity Falls, but I also really love Deltarune. And I look forward to talking more about cool indie games that make me happy. And, I guess we'll see what else I make. I did want to just plug my, I have a Patreon if you're interested in seeing behind the scenes content. things about my games, things about videos. I have like the raw audio of that video that I keep talking about that is never gonna come out, I guess. I just have the whole edited audio just on there in the Patreon on the top tier if you're interested in listening to it and you're like, what is this goddamn video? Yeah, that's on there. I have like raw assets from my streams or videos. I have like behind the scenes stuff. I have really old art that I posted on there forever ago. So yeah, if you like what I do, you like my videos, you want to help support me, want to help me make more stuff, make more cool things, feel free to hop over there, suggest maybe things that you would like to see on the Patreon. Like if you're interested in supporting me but you don't really like what I have over there yet, you know, let me know. So yeah, anyway, this is Scoot signing off, I suppose. Deltaruning out. Carpet. Check it out, I'm in the house. Like a carpet. I'm in the house like carpet.